any extraneous job they do not have to do. So they should not be cleaning
Like
their treatment tables and rooms. Your front desk should never, ever be walking
Whoa!
away from the front desk. I know that's going to irritate some
God,
clinic owners.
you're gonna upset a lot of clinic owners on
I
this.
know, and I love you all. And as a clinic owner, I totally get it. But here's a little tip. So my PTs and athletic trainers in our clinic are hired with the understanding that they do laundry and clean their own tables. So
So your clinicians do all the cleaning?
they do. They do.
People type in the chat. Who? I'm curious about this. This is fascinating.
And then here's the thing: they're hired
Hold
with
on,
that
hold on.
understanding.
Type in the chat. Type in the chat. Who cleans your rooms? Is it the clinician or is it like the front? Type in the chat. You know, right?
Oh, Lacey, I like it.
See.
Clinicians.
Front.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a good split. You know.
There's some good clinician groups in here. All right. Seriously though, you have to look at efficiency. I'm a hugely efficient person. My goal is efficiency across the board. So, you know, anytime you take your front desk off of your front office lines, meaning your patient management lines, you are less efficient on your schedule. You're less efficient anywhere in your clinic, because remember, your front desk has one role, and their role is to manage your patient's care. So if they walk away to fold laundry, they're not calling patients to fill your schedule for tomorrow. They're not handling, they might be answering your phones, but they're not managing all those other things like schedule efficiency and your cancellations and refills and other collections. So my advice, you know, and my practices that I worked with will tell you, we fought this fight before, but it's really, really important that your front office can focus on their patients when they're working.
Hey, so I love this conversation, you know, because this conversation is about like what should a front desk do, right? Which I don't think we talk enough. So Dee, if you're to like have like a list, you know, what would there be like the 10 things that they would do, you know, like can you name it off?
Yeah,
you know,
well,
right?
it's all geared towards your product. Your product is people helped. You can't help people if your front desk isn't focused on that. So when you're looking at it, it's all around your metrics, right? So arrival rate. If I have a very low arrival rate, meaning I have a high cancellation rate day to day, same day cancellations and no shows, not prior cancellations and no shows, I'm not efficient as a practice. So first there's 5 metrics. There's arrival rate. There's new patient conversions, right? Because if I'm not converting new patients, that's a potential $1,200 plan of care I don't have for, or $700 if you're on the East Coast, okay? So that's new patient conversions, arrival rate, schedule efficiency, right? If my schedule isn't full day to day, if I'm not mastering and managing that. So there's somebody that asked early on, well, how do you keep patients if your schedule's full? Well, first of all, you have to be filling every empty spot at all times. You have to be educating patients on how that's going to happen so that if they're not scheduled, that's being managed. So that's schedule efficiency as well. Then there's percentage of visits kept per week. So that's your prescribed visits kept. So you have a PT that's prescribing 3 times 2, 2 times 4. Is the patient actually scheduled and arriving for that percentage of visits per week? Because if that's not the case, okay, well, now we're not maximizing the patient care or the clinic's ability to help. And so then we go back to number 1 and we try to get more new patients, but we don't need them if we manage arrival rate, schedule efficiency, and visits kept per week, right? And then the 5th stat that we always track, because this affects the clinic's bottom line, is percentage of daily collections over the counter. So if I have 100 patients that owe me a copay, deductible, or coinsurance, I should be collecting as close to 1-to-1 as possible, so 100%.
Dee, from what I'm hearing at your clinic, your front desk, once again, it sounds like you got 4 or 5 front desks working.
But I started with 2.
You start with 2, and you literally like you have like a front desk machine going on. So they have the 5 metrics, but when I sum it all up, what they do is like they spend a lot of time on the phones, right? Am I right? And they spend a lot of time collecting money, right? And keeping the schedules full. Like,
but it's managing patients. All of that, Rick, falls under patient management. If I am not a master at handling objections, handling patients, educating my patients on what's needed and wanted, I'm not gonna be successful. To my friend that asked about bringing patients to the back, I make my PTs and athletic trainers come up front. so that they walk them to the back. And because that's the PT in me that would want my PTs to watch how a patient's moving or walking. So just saw that and figured I'd answer it.
Actually, you know what? I actually agree. I actually think it's way better to have a clinician to like bring the people in the back, just from a patient experience standpoint, you know, right? Because, and then once again, if we don't want to overload the front, you know, so that they could do a better job with conversion rates, with like keeping the schedule full, right? You know, with keeping money, you know, right, and making people show up. We can't like give them too much stuff to do, right? You know, so I love that. That was a massive like takeaway for me. That was gold, right? Hey, if you found that helpful, type in gold in the chat, okay? Like that was like massively helpful. Type in gold in the chat if you just love some of the gold gems that Dee dropped in the chat.
I appreciate that. Well, that makes me feel good. I'm gonna blush.
Gold, look at this. Everyone's gold, right? And if you thought it was okay, put silver. But I think it was that was like amazing, right?
So Chris has a question while everybody's writing gold, and thanks you guys. You guys are awesome. Some of them are my clients, some of them are not. But Chris was asking about a centralized front desk versus, what I'm assuming, Chris, you mean in like each, like if you have multiple locations, you want to know about a centralized front desk versus somebody like, so like, so let's talk about that really quickly. So I have actually worked with a practice in New Orleans that they had a central operator and a central scheduler for evals, right? So they had a new patient scheduler, and that person was central to, I believe they had 4 clinics at the time and in their practice. And so they had that. And so we spent a lot of time focusing on the new patient for that central scheduler. But I firmly believe that whoever wears the hat of your front desk somebody should be in that location. So there's nothing wrong with having a centralized person who is scheduling evals or collecting certain data, but it's really important. And trust me, I have a few clients, I would gladly refer you to them, who have aides that cross over. How many of you can put in here, if you have an aide that crosses over between the front and the back, throw that in the chat box for me, because that's really, really important. Okay, good. So here's a piece of advice if you have aides. Question, Rick, how many hats can you wear effectively, hat on your head at one time? Come on, answer the question. How many can you wear legitimately at one time, guys?
I can wear 1 hat.
Thank you, fist bump. Okay, good. So if you can only wear 1 hat and you consider your job like a hat, right? This came from the conductors of the old days on trains and stuff. If Rick can only wear 1 hat effectively, he can only put his attention on 1 job effectively. There's nothing wrong with having an aide who crosses over to the front desk. But number 1, they have to be trained. And number 2, when they step over that line at the front desk, they absolutely have to take off their aide hat and not rush to put it back on again until they have managed their patient effectively at the front. So there's nothing wrong with having aides step over, but number 1, they have to be trained, highly trained on both sides, right? So, okay, I got my aide, they're going to cross over. When their butt is in that front desk seat, they absolutely have to literally be not focused on rushing back to help the PT or other provider. They have to be able to handle their, so yeah, Tiffany, yeah.